Cloudy, breezy, low 45 overnight. It's 58 right now. Next news at 8. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Watch today's show live right now on the Income Store live video stream at 560theanswer.com.
Tickets for Freedom Summit Chicago are on sale now at freedomsummitchicago.com. That's freedomsummitchicago.com.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. Did you see this bizarre story about Mitt Romney?
Oh, that he's got a Twitter handle. His real name is Pierre Delecto? That sounds like a male stripper name, doesn't it? And now, welcome to the stage, ladies, Pierre Delecto. Isn't he delicious? Yeah.
Yeah, and Flagrante Delecto, which this is so interesting to me. He had this fake account apparently that he used to sort of follow politicos he wanted to follow and also make critical remarks of Trump and the like.
Wait, but he didn't want to. He wasn't man enough to follow him on his own real account, so he had this fake account.
Are people becoming more? I mean, this predates Trump, but are people becoming more like Trump? I mean, remember Trump's alter ego press agent John Barron?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like what Cheryl Atkinson said to Howard Kurtz about the question as to whether President Trump has made the D.C. press corps lose their mind. And her response was, did he make them lose their mind, or did he just expose the fact that they had lost their mind? Those are different questions. And I sort of feel that way about Mitt Romney's Carlos Danger impersonation here.
Well, he's following 668 people, and again, he's just making sure, to monitor political news and commentary.
I'll tell you what, for an effete gentleman like Mitt Romney, Pierre certainly is the right name that he chose. And by the way, the weak link in the Senate when it comes to standing up against the leftist conspiracy theorists, this is why Romney has already drawn a hit ad from Club for Growth running this ad on Fox stations in Utah.
Slick, slippery, stealthy. Mitt Romney had us fooled.
Being in Donald Trump's magnificent hotel and having his endorsement is a delight.
Posing as a Republican, he tried to infiltrate Trump's administration as Secretary of State.
President-elect Trump is the very man who can lead us to a better future.
Now his cover's blown, exposed by news reports as a Democrat's secret asset. Sources say Romney's plotting to take down President Trump with impeachment. Tell Romney, quit colluding with Democrats on impeachment.
And tell Pierre Delecto, too, while you're at it. It's
so bizarre. It's so goofy.
As buttoned down as Mitt Romney presents himself to be. And I mean, in terms of like a life well lived, we talked about that when we ran for president in 2012. This seems to be like straight-laced, buttoned-down guy as there has ever run for president, much less been president. But then the other part of it is, he's a cutthroat private equity guy, too. And
he's got an alter ego, yeah.
And he's slippery, and he's transactional. He's not principled, and thus his foray into government-run healthcare in Massachusetts. And, the thing that he aspires to is status. No question about it. He sees politics as status, not as, certainly not as a street fight, maybe not even public service, I don't know. But he feels like he is one of the philosopher kings that should be genuflected before, and his more recent behavior seems to remind us of that in case we had forgotten it in 2012. For more on this topic and so many others, we're pleased to be joined by Dominic Green, life and arts editor for Spectator USA, contributor to the Wall Street Journal and the New Criterion. Dominic, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan. Good morning, Amy. I'm in Parliament Square in London. I'm here for a little bit of Brexit, and we're waiting for the big vote today.
Yeah.
On Saturday, as you hear, Boris Johnson tried to get his deal through the Parliament, but he was ambushed by people on his own side. And they added an amendment, making it impossible for him to move the deal through. But they're going to try again this afternoon.
Ambushed by people on his own side. This has a familiar ring to it. Before we talk more about Brexit, what's your handle on the impeachment melodrama playing out and sort of slippery actors like Mitt Romney on technically inside the Trump perimeter?
Well, my first understanding is that this is the surest way to boost Donald Trump's chances of re-election in 2020. A out impeachment business, which is, I don't believe it's going to get anywhere, but it's going to be a long and embarrassing theatrical. And I think any Republicans who try and work the angles on this are also going to damage their prospects in the same way as the Democrats are.
Are the people over there following the debates that we're having and any of that?
Yes, they are. A lot of people here, obviously, are not aware of the difference and nuance between impeachment as a legal process and the impeachment inquiry, which we currently have, which, of course, is more an attempt to turn up some dirt in a long-running dig. But they are following very closely, and the division between ordinary opinion and elite opinion that you see in the U.S. is pretty much replicated here when it comes to attitudes towards Donald Trump, or indeed in attitudes towards Brexit.
And so it's fascinating. So Boris Johnson is able to get a deal in principle with the EU. Apparently, some in his own party thought that wasn't going to happen. And even though it did happen, they're still willing to fall on that sword despite public support. Obviously, that's why this process was launched. Public support to get out of the EU.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is a very clear-cut case of the Parliament thinking they know better than the people. They made the mistake of asking the people's opinion. They got a very clear answer, and now they're charged with executing it in legislative terms. And people said, as you're saying, that Johnson would have no chance of getting a new deal with Brussels in 100 days, but he's managed it. And then it comes to the Parliament, and people in his own party, the Conservative Party, who are not reconciled to Britain leaving the European Union, are doing anything they can to block the process. So they tripped him up. But if as a gambling man, I would reckon that they're going to squeeze it through. I was talking with one of Spectator's lobby correspondents who's been in and out of Downing Street on a daily basis over the last week. And their feeling is they have the numbers, that there'll be defectors from the Labour Party, pro-Brexit, Labour Party MPs who might make up the difference, and they could well get it over the line. The difficulty is, of course, that they may get over the line attached to a ball and chain, because a further amendment may be attached demanding a second referendum, which will return everybody back to square one, to endorse, in other words, the deal that they've got. And this is really a stratagem for undoing Brexit, for reversing it, for restoring control over politics to the people who think they know best.
So, I mean, it's sort of the Brexit was a popular uprising, much like we've had with Trump. And you see that, do you see the energy behind that popular uprising against the ruling class? Is that really Boris Johnson's secret weapon here to get this done?
Yes, and it is. And of course, Boris is a member of the ruling class, if ever there was one. You know, he's a classicist, and he's been to Eton, and he was born in New York City even. Yep. But he most definitely has what they call the common touch. And this morning in Parliament Square, when I was looking around, there are crowds of people waving Union Jack flags or European Union flags, depending on which side they're on. Things are fairly cheerful this morning. There's no scenes like there were on Saturday after the vote then. Members of the government who left the House of Commons on foot had to be given police escorts because the crowds were so angry. But absolutely, there's a massive popular energy attached to this, and any attempt to head it off or to wait it out is mistaken. Last week, the polls had 65% of British people, whichever way they voted 3 years ago, just saying they want to get it done, get on with it, and so on. And that's a pretty conclusive public opinion in favor of finishing the process and getting out.
The mainstream media here is focusing on Johnson's 2 letters that he sent to the EU on Saturday, one requesting a Brexit extension and the other arguing against it. Is there any truth to that, and what is that all about?
Oh, it was well. He got his hand tied basically by the Parliament, saying if you don't have a deal, we can't leave on October the 31st. 10 days from now. And so he and his advisors came up with this wheeze whereby, yes, they'd send the letter that they were legally obliged to send, except they sent it as a photocopy and he didn't sign it. And then he attached this letter to it, basically saying, this is Parliament's will, this is a legal obligation, this is not what I want at all. And he reminded the EU leaders in the second letter that any delay would be bad, not just for the British economy, but also for the EU economy. And let's not forget that the Eurozone, which uses the euro currency, the Eurozone is slipping into recession. Germany is heading that way, France that way as well. They're not interested in further economic distress. And so Boris's secret weapon, as it were, in today's vote, is that the European Union, which has been quite antagonistic in the negotiating period, is actually now on his side in the sense that they also want to get this wrapped up on time on October the 31st.
And what was Boris Johnson able to do to cajole the EU to change their tune?
Well, the big sticking point previously was the status of Northern Ireland, and the parties came up with a fudge, really. Northern Ireland, is part of the United Kingdom, but of course the Republic of Ireland is an EU state. Under the New Deal, Northern Ireland would remain in the UK's customs zone, which means it would benefit from any of the free trade deals that Britain could then strike, for instance, the one that Donald Trump has spoken about. But Northern Ireland will also remain inside the EU's regulatory zone. So, of course, the unionists in Northern Ireland, the ones who want to be in the UK, they're furious about this, and they have a point because in their terms, yes, this sets the North on a path towards reunification with the Republic. And if you were to ask me, I would say that that's the long-term historical drift anyway, and it's going to happen sooner or later, and it may well turn out to be the price tag for getting the rest of the UK out of the EU.
Before we let you go, being a man of letters, the life and arts editor for Spectator USA, Dominic Green, I wanted to get your comment on the passing of really famed humanities professor at Yale, Harold Bloom, passed away last week. I mean, he was a fierce defender of the Western canons, particularly Shakespeare, which isn't even required in like 47 of the top 50 English departments in America these days to be an English major. It's sort of remarkable. We're in a situation now where you're not allowed to be graded on the quality of your writing, just the effort you put into it. I mean, and that's at the collegiate level. So we've gone about as far away from the idea of the humanities and literature as we can from what Harold Bloom thought about it. And I just sort of wanted to remark on his passing and get your reaction.
I thought Harold Bloom was a tremendous American scholar, and I mean that in the sense that he was a world-class scholar, but he was also a uniquely American kind of scholar. He was in the lineage, I would say, of Emerson and Whitman, people who were enormously passionate and inspiring about literature, and who understood that the love of good books is something which makes people better citizens in some way. And so, yes, it is a tragedy, and Harold Bloom was very vocal about what was going on in the universities. He was openly hostile, and of course everyone else was openly hostile to him about this.
Yes.
But I believe he stood up for the best and so on, not just in literature, but in the way that it helps us all become better people.
He is Dominic Green, life and arts editor of Spectator USA. Dominic, thanks for joining us, and good luck with Brexit out there.
We'll need it. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Amy.
God bless. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Balance of Nature. Changing the world, one life at a time.
I've had a corrective lens restriction on my driver's license for years and years, meaning that I have to drive with glasses. So my birthday came up and my license was going to expire on my birthday. So I went to the DMV, to get that renewed, and I passed the eye exam without glasses. And the lady, she's just looking at me going, how does that even work? She goes, you aced the whole thing. And I said, well, I started taking these supplements, and I started explaining it to her. And I tell everybody about it. It's been a huge blessing for me, for sure. I'll be on this stuff for the rest of my life. It's amazing.
Experience the Balance of Nature difference for yourself. Balance of Nature is now offering a 35% discount and free shipping on your first preferred order of